Good afternoon, everyone. Madam Chancellor, Madam President, distinguished guests, faculty, graduates, family, and friends. I stand here with a grateful heart for the honor that Mount St. Vincent University has bestowed upon me, and I share this day of celebration with all of you graduates. Thank you. I too was a student here at the Mount in 1985, and I acknowledge that much has happened in the last 33 years. Some of these changes have influenced my Mi'kmaq community more than others. For example, in 1993, Premier John Savage declared October as Mi'kmaq History Month. In 1996, the Governor General of Canada, Romeo LeBlanc, proclaimed June 21st as National Aboriginal Day. And in 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its report. But one of the greatest changes that holds the greatest satisfaction for me as a Mi'kmaq education advocate happened closer to home when the Mount opened its doors to the Aboriginal Student Center in February of 2013. Prior to choosing the Mount, I had completed 3 years at the Nova Scotia Teachers College in Truro. I pursued my year at the Mount because I wanted to hold a university degree. I wanted to add a university degree to my teacher's certificate. And I chose the Mount not only because of the support it offered its students, but also because it provided a positive learning environment where women's contribution and perspectives were valued. I'm so pleased that this is a practice that continues to this day. To the graduates of the Mount, class of 2018, I want you to fully understand how strongly and deeply I celebrate your achievements. I know the struggles, sacrifices, and hardships that each and every one of you have gone through to get here today. Remember, I too was a student, and at the same time, I held the roles of mother and wife. On that note, I'd like to share a little bit about my family, and in particular, my childhood. My mom, Sarah Bernard, was a strong, courageous, and loving mom. My dad was Tom Young, Duma. He was a carpenter by trade and built boats. Boat building was somewhat of a hobby for Dad, but people liked his workmanship and bought boats from him. He was a resourceful man, so he built lawn furniture from the scraps. He also repaired other people's furniture. His real love was being outdoors, fishing in all seasons and trapping in the winter. Together, they raised 10 children. At this momentous time in my life, I want to acknowledge my siblings: Isabel, Margaret, Alice, Morris, Helen, Tom, Clara, Mary Kay, and Eleanor. There is a reason why I name my siblings, and it is this. I was 6 years old when I, and along with my brothers and sisters, were forcibly removed from our home in Antigonish and taken to the Shubenacadie Residential School. In total, I spent 8 years there. I will always be grateful to my Creator for allowing me and my siblings to have the 5 years with my mom and dad. It was during that precious time that they showed us traditional teachings, the foundation being respect for each other and all life, unconditional love, acceptance, and the importance of honesty. It was through their daily activities that they demonstrated a strong work ethic. My parents were also the most important heroes in my life because of the values they instilled in me. They stressed the importance of getting an education, and they didn't want us to struggle the way they did. They wanted us to be independent and self-sufficient. They saw education as a path to opportunities that weren't available to them. If you allow me, I would like to tell you how I'm able to take my experience at the residential school and advocate for the Mi'kmaq children, and how I was able to turn my parents' advice into action. In 1986, I received my BEd from the Mount. My first job was at St. Mary's Elementary School. At that time, we were known as teacher aides, and we worked exclusively with Mi'kmaq children. I was acutely aware of the struggles that the children went through. It was not only the language that was a problem, but also the way subjects were taught. Children were expected to grasp concepts that were somewhat foreign. There was very little room for mistakes, and children sensed that very quickly. There were times when children were given negative labels. I remember finding a history book in the desk of a grade 5 classroom and bringing it to the teacher's attention. The book talked about Indians being savages. "You're not still teaching this to our children," I said. "No," she said, and then she collected up the books and put them in the closet. Fortunately, since I started my career more than 30 years ago, tremendous strides have been made, not only in the field of teacher training, but at all levels of education. I celebrate the way the Mount has taken leadership in the training of teachers. To be culturally aware of the differences can only lead to a better educational experience for children. Following my years working with the Mi'kmaq children at the elementary school level, I started working for the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq. As a Native education counselor, I traveled to Halifax daily to work with the Mi'kmaq students attending university. I spent 5 years working with students and helped to address countless numbers of students' concerns. At the university level, the issues were more complex. My students were in need of a strong support system as they started out. I was able to help build those for them, connecting students with the university's staff, including advisors, professors, and administrators. And I strongly encouraged them to become their own advocates. My years working as a Native education counselor for Dalhousie University allowed me to provide the voice for the Native students who came to me looking for guidance and support. I could see how the residential school experience had somehow taken away their voices, and they were unable to ask for help from the school and the professors. You might wonder how these students who hadn't attended residential school had lost their voices, and why I am linking them to residential school. You see, when we were in residential school, we were warned by the nuns and the priests never to discuss what happened at the school with our families back home. We were threatened with severe punishment if we discussed anything outside the school. We learned how to remain silent despite the abuse we endured for the many years that we were there. So along with our language, our voices were silenced. We learned that we were not allowed to ask for help or never complain. The lessons of residential school had been carried back to our communities, became firmly entrenched, and were being passed through generations. I related to those university students and their struggles to find their voices. I worked hard at encouraging them to form a new tradition, one of advocacy for one another. I found people who were willing to participate and cooperate with me as we prepared these new young minds for the challenges that lay ahead. It was a wonderful time in my life, and I'm proud of the work we accomplished, but the work is not yet done. Today, I participate in sentencing circles for Native offenders through the Mi'kmaq Legal Support Network. It is there I see the effects of the residential school continually played out and reenacted generation after generation, leaving in its wake depression, despair, abuse, and suicide. Just as I had worked with the elementary teachers many years ago, today I ask you, no matter what your professional path may be, to change the way you see my people. We have been through much more than I could ever discuss with you in one day, and we need people willing to collaborate with us. I need you to become a partner within our communities. We need to move forward with one another in order to build a better tomorrow. I want you to endeavor to become advocates for those you encounter who seem to have lost hope or motivation. To those who have lost their voice, look beyond the obvious. Don't make quick and superficial judgments, and don't apply labels, especially negative ones. Look at the cause of the behavior and try to support those that need redirection or an understanding ear. Hear their story. You can become an advocate for those you encounter along your journey and help find hope and purpose again. To the future teachers here today, try to be an advocate for the quiet, reluctant student, a calming influence for the erratic student, and an encouraging voice for all those in your care. The confident, successful students are already on their way. Please embrace divergent learners and lead them towards the door of successful learning. You are their advocate. We need you to find the spark in each student to motivate them to become successful learners. To end, I share with you a piece of advice my mom instilled in me and my siblings. And I hope you will share it with your students as well. As she used to say to us, walk tall, walk tall. Hold your head up high and be proud of who you are. Well, I'll sit down.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much.